don't want to interrupt this, but it's time for our meeting to start, and we can talk about this.
That's okay.
At the organizers meeting. I do think there's some good ideas here that I think we can make something happen. I think a monthly challenge might be a good idea also, but we can talk about that later.
We started that, didn't we? Didn't
No.
Greg start that? Yeah, anyway, sorry.
What?
A monthly challenge.
Greg's not here. He asked me to take
No,
care
but
of it.
he had started a monthly challenge a while ago.
Oh yeah, that was something different. That was he was posting a tutorial and asking people to do their thing. I've got a different thought on that, but like I said, we can talk about that later. Now, Matt wanted me to do an intro, so here it is. Welcome to the, what is this, October's monthly meeting. Is there anybody here for the first time? No? Okay. I don't know that we have a whole lot going on next week. There's the constructive photo review. Matt has scheduled a Nikon roundtable for those of you that have that shoot Nikon. I'm hearing feedback from somewhere.
There's
Just muted everyone now. I unmuted me. Okay. But anyway, Matt just scheduled a Nikon roundtable for all of you that shoot Nikon, or if you're interested in learning more about Nikon, think you might want to switch from some other format. And that's pretty much all we've got going on. We do have a nomination committee. We've got elections coming up, and we've got 3 people who have volunteered to be on our nomination committee, and we're going to be meeting tomorrow to talk more about that. If you're interested in running for office this time, you can let Greg or myself or Scott, any of the organizers know. Otherwise, we're just going to pick you and you're going to get drafted. Now, part of the process is that we make sure that you're interested in doing the job before we nominate you for that position. And that's all I've got. Is anybody else? Everybody's muted. I don't know how we unmute everybody, but
I think we have to do it.
okay. So if anybody else has anything that they would like to mention at this time, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I have, does anybody know of anyone who might be interested in an older and larger and assorted film development equipment? Because I have one and I want to get rid of it. So if you know of anybody, let me know.
Okay.
I possibly might know of somebody. I can ask my wife's friend does film.
Oh, okay.
I can ask her.
Okay.
Or you might check with the school.
Yeah, I did a couple of years ago and they didn't want it. And
What the hell?
That's Jim.
It's Jim's microphone. Jim, your mic's not working.
Jim, you sound like a Muppet.
He's muted.
So here's your
Brett Robinson might want that stuff too.
okay.
oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, Brett shoots a lot of film.
Oh,
Still can't hear you, Jim.
Jabberwocky.
Mike's not working, Jim.
Do not inhale helium before you start talking on Zoom.
Yeah, that's right. The balloons.
Which I heard is in short supply these days.
It is. It's really expensive.
Okay. So if nobody else has got anything, we can move into the main focus of the evening. Miss Laura. She's going to be sharing her expertise in underwater photography, and I think we've all seen some of the beautiful shots she's done. A bunch of them have been at the state fair. And I don't really know much more to say for an introduction, Laura, except that you're an amazing underwater photographer. So,
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, they've been at the state fair, but that darn Bill Leach always beats me. So I'd throw that Bill Leach in the ocean and see how good he is.
there you go. Challenging.
But I gotta figure out like how I share my desktop. I'm sure I can do that as soon as I get in this darn Zoom window. Share screen. Yes.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. Everybody see? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's any problem at all with the video, just let me know, but I'm gonna pretty much get into it. So I put together a little presentation, and I didn't want my presentation. I talked to Greg a little bit about what to do, and I didn't want my presentation to be just, this is me in Indonesia. I wanted my presentation to be more like, here, here's some ways that you can do some underwater photography or some photography, underwater with the camera without spending a hideous amount of money or learning to scuba dive. So I'm kind of going at it from that angle, and also talking about what influences me topside and how I take that underwater. And there's a couple of people in this club who have really spent a lot of time with me and who influenced me a lot. One of them is Britt, and Britt and I talk a lot about lighting, and butterfly lighting is something that people do in a studio. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how some of that studio technique I've taken underwater and practiced with strobes. So anyway, we'll get going. This is from Port Orford, and I've been trying to dive the Oregon coast for a long time, and we finally got some options to get in there and start diving it. And we went down there, and I don't know if you guys know, but the kelp disappearing is a real problem, and the urchin have basically eaten all the kelp off the coast. The southern Oregon coast, and a place that I dove 7 years ago was covered with beautiful kelp. And this area right here was covered with a beautiful dense kelp forest, and now it's totally bare. There's no kelp left at all in this area, and these rockfish should be swimming through a beautiful curtain of dense kelp, and instead they're swimming over this bare rocky area because the kelp is totally gone. So documentary. So here's a little bit about me. I've been diving since 2005, almost 700 dives. Pretty much mostly dive here in the cold water. Kind of rare. Most people learn how to dive here and then they bag it and they only dive warm water. I'm kind of rare. I fell in love with it here and I just stayed diving here. I did not just only dive tropical. I do dive tropical, but to me, diving tropical is so easy. If you learn how to dive here, somebody once told me that if you learn how to dive here, you can dive anywhere. And it's pretty much true, because when I go to Florida or I go to a warm water place, I feel like you can just fall off the boat into the water and that's it. It's pretty easy to dive warm water because of the extreme level. You have to wear a dry suit. That's me in the upper corner wearing a dry suit. You have to wear a lot of weight. You have to wear an undergarment. It's not easy diving here. It can be rough. You know, so when you go dive warm water, it's pretty easy. These are all the places that I have dove. These are the places on the bottom that I'd like to dive. I had 4 trips scheduled to Canada this year, which I had to cancel all of them. I am usually in Canada this time of year because this is the time of year to go there. It's been really a tragedy not being able to go to Canada because Canada is one of my favorite places to dive. I was thinking about maybe going somewhere next year because I like to go every other off year. I take a warm water trip, but I'm really hesitant to buy an airplane ticket or make any plans until I find out what's happening with COVID-19 because so many people have lost money on that. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to chill until I can figure out what's going to happen. I've been getting more into freshwater diving. That's me in the corner in the North Santiam River. I've been shooting more salmon, trout, doing more snorkeling, freshwater mussels. So kind of branching out in the summer when the viz isn't so great in the ocean and getting more into our rivers and lakes. Lots of different types of diving. Sometimes we dive off Zodiacs. Sometimes we dive out of the back of our rigs. Sometimes we dive them when there's palm trees and tropical situations. Sometimes we dive off the coastal headlands. This is out of Port Orford. It can cost a lot of money. Admittedly, the camera system that I have is pretty expensive. I did not start out that way. You don't need to start out that way. You can get into this pretty cheaply. You do not need to spend a lot of money. I did because I sort of grew out of my older systems and out of my simpler systems and into what I have now. So you can put your iPhone in a waterproof case and you can take it diving with you. You can put your Olympus TG6 into a waterproof case and you can take it diving with you. This particular Olympus is waterproof to 30 feet, so you can snorkel with it. Some phones are waterproof, not many. This little Kraken case is really nice little case. It has a vacuum seal. You can take it diving and do all kinds of things with it. I was in Indonesia and this gentleman had one of the newer Canons. I never can remember the newer model ones, but one of the 5 Mark Ds or whatever, and a pretty expensive one. And this gentleman was shooting an iPhone in a case and was coming up with these just really nice pictures. And the gentleman with the Canon was pretty frustrated. So it's not about the camera you have, it's more about the skill. So, and then here's some other types of cases. This funny looking case in the corner is a surf housing. You might see some people at the beach using this type of housing. A lot of people who shoot waves, they tend to use these types of housings with their cameras. This is a housing that can go down to about 20 feet. That's it. You see free divers using this type of housing. These are people who do not scuba dive. They breath hold. They'll go down 20, 30 feet. These are just other types of housing. This is this housing at the top is called a biwa bag. It's basically like a fancy Ziploc bag. I saw somebody diving with this bag in Indonesia with their camera. You know, me personally, I spent a lot of money on my camera. I don't know if I'd put my camera in a Ziploc bag, but for them, it worked great. They took nice pictures. They were happy. I mean, this bag's can cost you about $200. It's a good alternative. You don't care if your camera gets flooded. This is my very first camera. I have a soft spot for this camera housing in the corner to the right because that was my very first camera. Had a Canon point and shoot, and that was my very first camera and housing. That was a great camera because you could just jump in with it. I don't jump in with my camera anymore. Very rarely do I jump in with my camera and housing anymore. And then on top is a GoPro. You see a lot of people with GoPros now. And GoPros are a really cheap, affordable alternative. They take great little movies. You can get filters, put the filter on the front. Without a housing, you can go down to 50 feet with a GoPro. I put a housing on mine because it protects it, and plus I go within 50 feet. So I bought a GoPro just for fun because I had another GoPro that I stupidly flooded because I forgot to put it in a housing. Duh. And I got a new GoPro 8, and it's kind of fun to take a GoPro along sometimes. But I often find that, you know, you're either taking pictures or you're shooting your GoPro. So I kind of leave the GoPro for summertime when I'm poking around in the river and I'm just snorkeling and I see bass or I see something fun like turtles or something, and I just take the GoPro for that. This is my beast. It's the camera is inside the housing here. I'm just showing the housing itself. All together with the strobes and the housing and the port, it probably weighs about 12 pounds. I put floats on the arms because when I put my camera underwater, it has neutral buoyancy. There's a couple of things that I started doing with my camera because I became extremely frustrated over time with some things that were happening. One of the things that was happening was, if you look at these little delicate cords that come off, you kind of see in the front of the housing, you see these two plugs that come out the front. Those are strobe cords. I'm going to talk a little bit about strobes in a minute. You are familiar with the strobe or a flash. If you use a flash topside, we call them strobes underwater. You need a cord to transmit a signal to your strobe because it's basically a slave strobe. So you want to trigger the slave to fire. I was constantly breaking these cords. They are just not very they're just not very stable. You know, they're not very sturdy. Sometimes you got to jump in over stuff, you know, especially around here. I guess if you were just a princess diver and you didn't really, you know, do a lot of hardcore stuff, they'd be okay. But for here, for the Northwest, it just doesn't work. So I started getting smart and I build my own strobe cables now. And these strobe cables cost $100 a piece. And I started buying fiber optic cable by the foot. It costs about $1.49 by the foot. And I bought a much thicker strobe cable. So I've been buying my own, and they don't break. And also if they do break, it costs about $10 to build another one. So people started noticing these cables, and now I'm starting to sell them. So maybe I'll go into business building strobe cables. And I get it from a place in Texas. I don't know if you can see this or not, but here's some of the cable. And it's just a piece of, you know what people use? It's called end light, if anybody knows about fiber optic cable. This is the stuff that people use in car dashboards, apparently. So if you run this through your car dashboard, and this is what lights up all the little dials and whatnot. So this is what they use, and it's pretty affordable. So if you ever use fiber optic cable, you want some, let me know. I'll tell you where I buy it. It comes from Texas. People are real nice. So this is all the stuff on here. I have a focus light that I do need in darker conditions because the camera needs light to focus on. I have the two strobes. I have obviously a housing for my camera so that my camera doesn't flood. I use these lenses. I'm going to buy another lens pretty soon because I'm finding that these lenses, I need another lens that I can do more fish bodies. I'm stuck doing fish portraits and I'd like to get more of the fish. So I'm going to buy a 35 millimeter Toke. A Tokina 35 millimeter macro, which they don't make anymore, so I have to buy off eBay, but that's okay. I have a diopter, which is basically like a big microscope lens that you put on the front. It's a wet mount, so I screw it on underwater. But this is basically what I have. And you know, one thing that I really wish that I could get is if you see the circle in the back, is you can buy a viewfinder, which is 45-degree viewfinder. So I'm underwater and I have to look through this little circle. And if you're shooting something macro, you know, my neck, literally, I need a chiropractor when I get out of the water sometimes when I'm shooting something macro, because I have to kind of crane my neck down on the bottom to look through that. And with a 45-degree viewfinder, I could just look down the top and then into it, which would really be nice. So that's going to be probably one of my next purchases, is a viewfinder for this. But they cost about $1,000, so I'm not real. You know how that is. So
Well, how do you work with the zoom lens with your housing? How are you able to control that?
See this? You can see, okay, so here's one of these mechanisms like this. You can barely see, but right behind this lever is another gear like that. That's a zoom gear. Okay, and I only have one zoom lens that I use, which is that Toke, that 11-17. By the way, if you're looking for an excellent fisheye lens, I highly recommend this lens. This Toke 11-17 fisheye lens. Such a nice lens. And there it is right there. You can see it kind of in the arsenal. It's a really great lens, super sharp, and it only costs $500. And they make them from Canon too. So if you're looking for a fisheye lens, it's a super nice lens. And fisheyes usually have that barrel distortion. They kind of look weird topside. I mean, if you use them topside, you really got to be judicious on what you're doing with them, because I'm going to tell you, they look real strange when you shoot them topside. They're kind of cool for waterfalls if you use them correctly or something like that, but they can make people look kind of weird. Underwater, they're perfect because they have that perfect 180 bend, so you don't even see it underwater. So you just get a real nice 180 plane wide angle, especially with a big dome. So it's just a beautiful sharp lens. I love that lens. And the other reason I love this lens is because I post on Instagram a lot, and I don't know who the Tokina rep is, but they like my photo every time I post. So I'm always like, yay, Tokina. And these other two lenses, if you shoot a lot of macro, and this Nikkor lens right here is a beautiful lens for super macro. I really, really like this lens a lot. I have a D500. I don't have an 850. I decided not to buy an 850 because I don't shoot a lot of wide angle things. Like if I was going to Fiji a lot and I was shooting a lot of big animals or coral reef photos or big things, big landscape things, I probably would have bought a D850. But most of the time I shoot tiny things or I shoot macro. So I stuck with the D500. I really like my D500. This 105 is a great lens that I can take with me to an 850. Should I ever buy an 850 because it's already full frame, I can put it right on my full frame. This 60 is a wonderful lens. On my D500, it's more like a 90. So both of these little tele lenses are nice. They're beautiful macro lenses. I love shooting macro with these lenses. I just wish I had that 35mm macro because it would just fill in this gaps nicely for shooting whole fish. So dream wish, if I was like when I retire and when I'm doing this like professionally and being really assertive and pushing my brand, I would have a D850 housed along with the D500. Because that way, if I was on a shoot and I was doing sea lions or something like that, I would come up and I would get my D850 with my wide angle and I would take that down and I would be shooting that. And then I would come up and I would get my macro. I'd get this guy that had a macro and I'd take this one down. A lot of people shoot with two cameras. A lot of people take two cameras down and shoot with two cameras. So it'd be great if I had an 850 house too. It'd be great if I had an 850 that was ready topside, because I don't know how many times I've been on a boat and somebody's been like, oh, look at that puffin, look at that whale, look at that you know, fill in the blank cool creature that you wish you had a camera that wasn't in a housing that you could have taken a picture of. Well, you know, someday. So anyway, that's my setup. Any questions about that? Okay. Okay.
There are some questions, but I'm writing them down probably for later.
Okay. I'm not looking at that scroll thing. You can read them to me if you want.
One of them says, how limiting, this is from Rick
Okay.
Mayberry, how limiting is the camera housing in operating the controls?
Oh, not at all. This is the shutter right here. So this camera housing, this is an Autocam housing. It's machined aluminum. These housings are horribly expensive. I really wish they would sponsor me. You know, these housings are designed for people who use them underwater, and for people who wear gloves, because, you know, you got to wear gloves here. So I really like that, because all these dials, I need to use all these dials. You see, I mean, this is a mode switch. This is a shutter. Okay. I mean, I've got this set up. I've got these levers programmed. See, this is like autofocus, you know. Sometimes when I'm doing super macro, I need to, you know, I actually have my focus on manual focus. So I need to be able to turn these dials in the front. I shoot manual. So I've got, you know, I've got exposure here. I've got ISO on another lever that you can see in here. So it's not too limiting, I would say. I'm able to program all my levers to exactly what I want them to be. So it's just like topside. You have all these buttons on the back of your camera. So you can just program all these buttons right here to exactly what you need them to be. The only thing that I don't do is I don't use live view, because number one, it eats your battery, and number two, it's just not really functional for me, I find. Did you have another question?
There are a couple more questions, but they're not really related to gear
Okay.
in general. But I do
Okay.
have one
Okay.
myself. Related to what you just said, on my camera, it's also a Nikon, the two gear selectors here, I have to press an additional button in order to change selections. Does your housing take care of something
Yes.
like that?
It does.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention that this green, people like to ask about this. Like, what does this mean? This is a vacuum seal system. And so I can basically seal this whole camera hermetically with, this is kind of like people who drink wine, you know how you can inject air into the bottle, kind of similar concept. I unscrew a valve in the front, and then I just pump air into this housing, and then this button turns green. There's an alarm in here. So once it's pressurized and the button's green, you're in the pipe. So good thing to do.
And the other questions I've written down are not related
Okay.
to gear. They can probably, they are, well, I guess the one I had from earlier is, how do you travel with your tanks and your gear? Is it prohibitive, like
You
traveling
don't
with your
take tanks when you travel. You generally, tanks are always provided where you go. I sometimes wish I could take my steel tanks, because I hate diving aluminum tanks, because it's like diving with a cork on your back. But you don't take tanks. They provide tanks to you. All of this gear comes apart. And then I very cleverly pack it all into two 50-pound suitcases, and then all of my camera gear and lenses goes into a carry-on. And this housing gets wrapped up into various pieces of wetsuit and other packing materials. I have two, and I do not travel with Pelican cases or anything that looks like a camera case, because number one, that's a theft magnet, and number two, that's a tax magnet in other countries. And, I just figure, I'm like one of those people where I'm like, people don't need to know my business. I mean, I don't think that people in other countries, especially people who want to charge me more money, need to know my business. And when you have a Pelican case, you might as well just put a big sign saying, charge me more money and steal my stuff. And that's not cool. I'm here, I'm going to spend money in your country anyway. You don't need more of my money. And, I'm just good. I'm good with coming in under the radar. So I buy nondescript suitcases and I sort of rig them out with foam and other things. So I make them into things that I can travel with. Everything else goes on into a carry-on. And when you fly to Indonesia and places like that, they weigh your carry-on. So you need to come up with some pretty unique strategies to dump weight suddenly. One of them is they don't weigh you, but they do weigh your carry-on. So if you're a lady, you're all of a sudden stuffing all kinds of lenses down the front of your shirt and in your pockets. And I have a vest also that you can put things in. I've put strobes down the front of my shirt. Because they don't weigh you, they weigh your bag. So if you've got 15, if all of a sudden people are like, oh, there's a 15-pound limit. Ooh, it's amazing how much gear all of a sudden gets pushed down the front of your shirt. It's really amazing. So, and I want my lenses on the plane with me. And I also sometimes like to take my reg on my plane, on the plane too, my regulator, because when I get somewhere, at least I have everything that I need to dive. Because you can rent fins, you can rent a wetsuit, you can rent all that stuff. But my prescription goggles and my regulator and my camera and my lenses and everything else, I'm ready to go. I'm there. I'm ready to go.
Cool.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're going to hit on this later. Rick Clark asked, what effects of global warming have you noticed?
Oh, I'm going to talk about that.
Okay.
So this looks familiar to everybody, or it should. This is the same concept underwater. Okay. The only thing is you're just shooting through water, which is a medium that you need to think about with color and you need to think about with light. But you still are using these very basic principles underwater that you are topside. And you'd be amazed how many people that I talk to who just space out on the triangle. And, I just keep saying, well, were you looking at your aperture? Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, because ISO is important. You have to think about ISO. I mean, especially with water around here, our water is dark. So, I mean, I'm usually shooting about 800 ISO underwater here. I mean, starting out. And, it used to be back in the day that everybody was so afraid of grain and all that. And, with the 500, 800 is nothing. I mean, there's no grain with 800. Now, maybe I might be worried at 12,800, I might be worried, but you're not going to shoot that high underwater because you have strobes. But with 800, I mean, that's a good start in green water. And shutter speed is important too, because if you're shooting fast moving fish, you're not going to be shooting slow. You're going to be boosting your speed up. But you have to remember that you're syncing with strobes. So strobes, usually the fastest you can shoot is 1/160. So you really have to think about that with strobes. 250, you're pushing it with your strobes. So what'll happen is that you'll take your picture and you'll have this black line at the bottom, which is a real bummer, especially when you're getting something cool and all your pictures come out with this black line at the bottom. And that's because you pushed your strobes. Your strobes didn't sync with your shutter. So that's just one thing you have to think about. So you don't have the sun underwater, you have strobes. And I have two of these. And this is what probably takes the longest, I would think, you know, in your learning curve, is learning how to do strobes and to not get backscatter. And, you know, I think once you master this, you're gonna get killer shots, because it does take a while to master this, and you have to know what your strobe positions are and exactly how to position your strobes so that you do not get backscatter. And what backscatter is in this picture in the top is, you know, even in the clearest of water, you're still gonna have particles in the water. Okay. And our water is just, I love diving here, but our water is not clear. There is a lot of particles in our water, and it's great because that's good. There's a lot of nutrients in our water. So what you want to do is you're always aiming your strobes on these arms at the perfect angle so that you're not getting these particles in between your strobe and your subject. So you have to have, I know this sounds crazy, but I know exactly how to angle my strobes on the end of my arms every time so that I get this vortex right on my subject. And I don't know how to explain it other than to say it takes you about a few thousand pictures. And then after a while, you're like, okay, you know, because you take a picture and then you press the back button and you look. And I have a setting on my camera for, you know, highlight setting. And then I push my back button and it shows highlights. And if I get a lot of blink on my highlight, I know I have too much backscatter. So I instantly just start adjusting my strobes. And then I know that my cone is exactly right. And so you'll hear people talk about the cone, and this is what they're talking about. They're talking about this triangle cone right here. And you want your subject to be right at the top. Okay, because you want that light to be hitting your subject perfectly, just like that, with no backscatter in between. Okay, so it's pretty much the same topside principles. You're just shooting through water as a medium with particulate. You know, you just have to think about backscatter. And the other thing you have to think about is color. So with water, the deeper you go, you're going to lose color. And so you have to think about the spectrum. So blue and green are the last colors that you lose when you go deep. So if you've ever looked at somebody's pictures where, you know, they go on a vacation and they have one of those instant cameras they took underwater, and they show you a whole bunch of pictures, probably ad nauseum maybe, where they're all blue or green. And you're like, oh, these are great. Well, you know, they probably, that's because blue and green are the last two colors to leave. So you lose red within 30 feet. Okay. The rest of these colors, they're real quick. They drop right off. So that's why you have a strobe, because your strobe is restoring the Roy GB back into your pictures. Okay. And also your strobe is also a temperature reading. So you're really going for about 5,000 Kelvin underwater. Kelvin is a temperature gauge. The temperature of sunlight is 5,000 Kelvin. So typically, if you ever look at Lightroom in the panel, if you adjust the sliders, you'll see different numbers come up on the right-hand side. So if sunlight is usually right around 5,000 Kelvin. So you're trying to hit that right around 5,000 for sunlight, for perfect sunlight exposure. This is another type of flash. I wish Stephanie Hazen was here tonight because she loves these flashes. You can use these topside too. This is a ring flash. And if you shoot flowers or bugs or do a lot of macro cool stuff like poke around, this is something you should look into, because they're not very expensive. You can get a pretty good one for not a lot. You don't have to buy one for underwater. I think you can get a topside one that is not very expensive, but these ring flashes are awesome if you do a lot of macro work underwater. I've used one. I don't really like it too much myself. I know other people who really, really like ring flashes. I prefer strobes because I can move them. But they do give you really nice even light. So, but topside, I really like these ring flashes topside. So if you love shooting flowers, a ring flash is really nice. Really nice. So this is just kind of just showing no strobe. You've probably seen a lot of pictures from people who snorkel, who show you pictures like this. They don't have strobes. You know, they show you, you're like, oh yeah, that's great, but you can't really see what it is. A lot of people get away with one strobe. I've seen people who shot for years with one strobe. Totally possible to shoot great pictures with one strobe. It's kind of a pain. Two strobes a lot easier because basically you're using one as your prime and your other one is your fill. Okay. And that also takes a while to figure out how to calibrate, you know, your fill light. So a lot of people on here who topside use strobes, the slave strobes, know what I'm talking about when I say fill light. Britt, that's what I'm talking about. Britt is very, very good at studio lighting. There's a couple other people who really were helpful because I was trying to figure out how to do some remote strobe work, and they were very helpful with figuring that out. So there are some topside lighting things that carry over into underwater. So same type of ideas. This is something that Britt was helping me with because I was trying to figure out how to do some remote work with a fill strobe. So I really like this picture a lot. But this is with a remote strobe and a trigger. Okay. So I'm got some gentle fill in the background and then the main strobe in front, and the crab just walks right into it and triggers it. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm starting to work on more. I'm starting to become a little more sophisticated. Like at first when I was just taking pictures, it was like, oh my God, let me take a picture of every fish I see underwater. And I'm not thinking about framing or, you know, sophisticated things, but it's like most photography. At first you just take a picture of everything because it's cool. And then you start to kind of geek out on things that you're more interested in, and you start to use more techniques, just like Madeline was talking about. You know, we start to maybe focus on things like, I'm going to challenge myself. Well, I started thinking I'm going to challenge myself with remote strobe work on a tripod underwater, which is an enormous pain in the ass, excuse my French. And you really need to dive with people who are super patient. You can bribe with cases of beer later, but it's totally worth it because you can pull off stuff like this. We do river stuff. I really am starting to get more into rivers. Starting to show some more dynamism, you know, just showing rivers flowing, the health of rivers, working some more on east side stuff, shooting these guys, which was a real fun blast. This is North Santiam, obviously not this year. I couldn't even get in North Santiam this year because, well, it was on fire. So I wasn't doing any of this year. I really like shooting the salmon when they come back. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, they're all gross, but you know, it's kind of like start to finish, you know? I mean, I think they're really cool when they come back and spawn just because they're at the end of their journey, you know? I mean, they're going to die. So, I mean, I just like showing that part of it too. Just more river pictures. This is kind of, I'm starting to kind of get more, you know, into the action of it, you know, shooting that shutter speed, slowing that shutter speed down. I was actually playing with rear curtain on this. I'm trying to teach myself how to do that more because it looks really cool when you can pull it off. I usually take about 500 rear curtain pictures and 2 show up, so they look cool. I'm starting to work on more on lamprey. These guys are tiny. They're hard to find. I'm just working more with trying not to disturb them, especially when they're laying eggs. That's one thing. I don't like to mess with things when they're laying eggs and, you know, doing their thing. This is just ponds, getting into ponds, working with light. This is real slow shutter speed. And then I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because, you know, I'm sure you guys got better things to do than listen to me yarn on. So, just macro photography. I mean, kind of same land characteristics, you know. I'm starting to work more on bokeh. For many, many years, I was taught that, you know, high f-stop, black background, the classic ID book picture. That's why critique is really good for me, because when I go to critique, I see people doing really cool things that, you know, I start thinking, you know, I want to try that, or I want to, you know, bring some more of that into my work underwater, or try different things, you know. I'm getting away from the classic things that I always do. You know, I'm doing other things, you know, I'm doing blurry background, I'm doing shallow depth of focus, you know. These are things that I would never do before. I would throw that stuff out because it wasn't in focus. I shoot a lot of macro, mostly because our viz is not the greatest for wide angle. So it is what it is. Lots of, it's good for cuttlefish. These guys are change masters. This guy, of course, turned completely purple after I took this picture. They'll come up and kind of caress your lens with their little tentacles in the front, you know. They're just, cuttlefish are super smart. This is from Indonesia. These guys are just wild, weird. If you ever go to Indonesia, you'll just see the weirdest things ever there. Everything in Indonesia is strange. Some things are not even discovered yet. Like, this is a larval octopus, and nobody, you know, we don't even know. It might be a new species. It's a bobtail squid, about 1/4 of an inch long. This is a tiger shrimp that's less than 1/4 of an inch long. So I was really working super macro there. Again, getting more into that bokeh type approach, you know, where everything's not in focus, kind of getting away from that tight control. More bokeh. This is a nudibranch sea slug. So again, kind of that more traditional black background, but just a different lighting approach. I was kind of almost working on a butterfly lighting approach here. And, you know, just kind of loosening up a little bit on that tight focus. More nudibranchs. Working more on some super macro, wide angle. And this is close focus wide angle, which is kind of a type of macro with a wide angle lens. This is a really bizarre thing that hangs out in the sand, but it's also another close focus macro. Frogfish. So just kind of give you an idea, just working those, you know, trying to get in and get those focus points. And these guys are super tiny. And then, you know, diving on these, and then you see that they have eggs, which are even tinier. So just, again, working on that light, working on the focus. Wide angle, this is in British Columbia, where you can get 80 to 100 foot viz like this, green water. Really good wide angle opportunities up there. That's why I like to dive up there, because you get these type of scenes and you get these huge jellyfish. This jellyfish is probably 5 feet across. You know, I mean, you just get some insane photography experiences up there. Most of these wide angle approaches, you're going to use, you know, the fisheye lenses, the 10.5 millimeter fixes, things like that. Some people really like shooting rectilinear. I don't like rectilinear lenses so much. They're okay for sharks. I'm not a fan of them. Some people really like them. I got nothing against them. They're great for landscape, not for me. So just more landscape, big angle. This is that fisheye. This is a weird physics thing called Snell's window. This has to do with the angle of your lens when you shoot up through water. And depending on how wide your lens is the curvature that you get when you shoot up. So if you ever are underwater, and just depending, like if you have a very small aperture, you're going to get a smaller Snell's window. So this is something, and if you do this perfectly, you can get these trees. You get trees and you get the top side, and sometimes you can get birds flying. So this is something I like to do if you have real good viz underwater, and then you get those trees on the top side. Looks pretty cool. Just more big wide angle. This is a basket star from Canada. These things are pretty crazy. Jellies. NASA, or this is a Goliath grouper from Florida. And you know, black and white underwater, I just don't see that much of it, and I wish I saw more of it. You don't get that many people who shoot black and white underwater, and I think people pretty much are like, oh, I messed up that picture, so I'll turn it into black and white. Ernie Brooks, who was, I think his father started the Brooks Institute down in California. He shoots black and white, and I just really wish more people shot black and white. Sometimes I try to shoot black and white, but it's kind of hard to do because you have to think contrast wise instead of in color. But I just wish more people did it. Red Irish Lord. So, and I'm really trying to get more of the, you know, the personality of the fish. I really like rockfish, and you know, they just I think rockfish have a different personality. So I'm just kind of trying to show some of their personalities and just how beautiful they are. Most people, this is my kind of podium speech, but I'm so tired of charismatic megafauna when it comes to the ocean. You talk to people about the ocean and all they think about are whales and seahorses. And I want to have a sticker that says, I don't shoot charismatic megafauna, because it's not about whales and seahorses. It's about rockfish, and it's about kelp, and it's about nudibranchs, and it's about bryozoans, and it's about a million other things. I mean, whales and seahorses are like 0.001% of the ocean. It's about these guys, you know, because if rockfish collapse, I'm telling you, we're not going to be eating anything, you know. It's about these guys. And if we don't have any kelp, then we're not going to have any rockfish. And if we don't have any rockfish, we're not going to have salmon. We're not going to have anything. You know, ecosystem collapse in the ocean. That's a bad thing. To your question, Rick Clark, yes, I am seeing global climate change. And I'm seeing it rapidly happen. And this kelp disappearing is very distressing to me, because there were places in Monterey. I went to Monterey to dive about a month ago, and there were places that I dove in Monterey that I had not been. I had been 10 years ago, and then I went and dove them just recently, and the kelp is gone, completely gone. And to me, that is shocking. And there's otters in Monterey, so it's not from otters. The lack of otters, because a lot of people are like, oh, the lack of otters in Oregon is why they're, you know, it's not from otters. It's from, you know, I think it's from climate change. I think it's from a lot of things. There's a lot of stressors on the ocean right now. And without kelp, it's not good. These guys, morays, and, you know, people underwater, whole big trade in shooting people underwater. These guys in the Philippines these little kids were crazy. I mean, they would come down to 20 feet and be doing this. So like, oh my God, I would die if I tried to free dive to 20 feet. This is just kind of like a little weird offshoot. You've seen a lot of people get into blackwater, which is shooting in little larval forms of fish in the blackwater column. Kind of think about this picture for a minute. Okay, this is ultraviolet. All right, pretty trippy, huh? So a lot of things fluoresce with ultraviolet. Not so much here in our waters. There's a couple of anemones that will do this underwater. It's pretty trippy. You can go out. I have a little small UV light, and sometimes on a dive, I'll just go out and just freak people out on a night dive. I have this UV light. I just won't tell people that I have it. and I'll just pull it out and just shine it on this one type of anemone that I know bioluminesces, and it'll just freak people out because it'll just turn bright purple underwater. Just be like boing, and people are just all like, "Oh my god," you know. But this is in Indonesia and Philippines and in Florida too, there's a lot of coral that bioluminesces. And so when you shine ultraviolet light on it, you get this. You can see that little shrimp. You can kind of see him in there. Here he is here, and you can kind of see him on the side. But yeah, it's pretty trippy. You see a lot of that. And this is an example. We do have a tube. This is a tube anemone here that does bioluminesce. This is our northwest tube anemone that does bioluminesce. Isn't that pretty underwater? I think this is fantastic to see underwater. And people, it just scare people at first because people are like, "Oh my god," you know, like they think they breathe the wrong gas or something. But you know, I mean, it's just really beautiful to see underwater. I think this is a blackwater. This is just an example of blackwater. This is a guy I know, Jeff Millison, and this is a larval octopus. And he shoots the stuff. Basically, the premise is you just dangle 50 feet down at night, usually in the ocean, usually deep, under a boat. And you just tether up, and this, like at night, things rise from the depths, and you just shoot them as they kind of come by you. And these little things will just kind of float by you, and you just sort of focus on them real quickly as they float by you. I've never done it in the open ocean. I have sort of faux done it where we tethered a flashlight at the top at 25 feet and just kind of shot things as they flew by us. But you know, it'd be pretty cool to try this sometime. I'd like to. Florida, this is big in Florida. That is it. And this is old. I gotta change this. I'm on Instagram. So if you do Instagram, I try to post on Instagram, and it's Laura Tessler photography.com. Yeah. So I had to change my name to another name because I started a business. So yeah, I got to change that. But that's it. I can do questions. I hope that wasn't too long.
Not at all. That was really good, Laura.
Okay.
Definitely enjoyed it.
I'm willing to talk about equipment. I'm willing to talk about lenses. Oh, okay. I'm going to click on this chat so poor Matt does not have to read this stuff. Okay. Global warming. I'm writing down questions. Thank you, Matt. You're wonderful. 250-pound cases. Do I have a Sherpa? Well, someday. Oh, Stephanie is here. Do the ring flashes show up the debris floating in the water? No, because it's all about, especially when you shoot macro in particular, you are putting your strobes very, very close to the end of your camera. So you're not as worried about debris floating in between you and the subject. So that's, you know, one of the things you can kind of knock out with a ring flash. So, and sea otter reintroduction in Oregon, I am on the committee for that. And I think we're going to hopefully work on that. Hopefully we can get them to stick around. How much do I charge for prints? Depends on the print. I've really been talking to people about buying metal prints now. Most of the people that buy prints from me, I've been trying to wean them off paper prints and get them into metal prints, because metal prints are so much nicer for this, for my work in particular. I can't talk about everybody's work, but I can talk about metal prints for underwater photography, because first of all, they look wet. Okay. So look, I'm shooting stuff underwater. Okay. So if it looks wet, it's gonna make my stuff look nice. And I kind of like the fact that if they fall off the wall, they don't break. You know, the glass doesn't break. A lot of people, I don't know what this is, but a lot of people are like, I really want to put my stuff in my bathroom. Okay, that's cool. But if you want to put a frame print in a bathroom, eventually the mat's gonna warp because of the steam and the humidity. So a metal print is perfect for a bathroom or a kitchen or a place like that, because you don't have to worry about those things. So metal prints are a little more expensive, but I went to that place that we talked about a long time ago called the HD print, HD metal. Yeah, those guys are freaking awesome, you guys. You guys need to go there, because first of all, I have business, right? So I just called them up during COVID. This guy's been over backwards. I was freaking out. It was Mother's Day. I was coming up dry on Mother's Day. This is bad. I got two mothers. I'm a mother-in-law and a mother. And I was like, oh, I got to get these out. What am I going to do? And so called guy up. Guy was like, hey, got a business, 20% discount. I was like, all right. So, I mean, he drop ships, which is a gift from God if you're in a hurry to get stuff out. Anybody who drop ships is a friend. And I mean, 20% discount, got a business, does a great job. Those guys are great. Cannot more highly recommend HD aluminum print. Yeah, awesome. I want to go see their facility sometime. And then I don't see, did anybody else have questions? I think I got everybody. Oh, my photography has increased exponentially since the first underwater shot I saw. Well, why, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Somebody told me the other day, they're like, my brother gave me the best compliment ever. My brother was like, you used to just take these pictures or whatever you saw, and now you're kind of thinking, you're putting thought into it. And I'm like, thanks, brother.
I'm impressed with how you put together this presentation. All these, how did you do that?
Well, I talked to Greg, and I didn't want to, I mean, it depends. Like, some people want to travel a lot. Some people are
No,
like,
I'm talking about your visuals, your presentation itself, but also the visuals you put together were great. How did you do those?
because baby doll, I'm in the business to showing presentations to people.
What's the name of your business now?
my like business, like side hustle, or like what I get paid to do.
Not your job, your photography business.
The side hustle is called Laura Tessler Photography. Isn't that clever?
Okay. Yeah, got it.
But no, I use PowerPoint.
That's right. You did
for
PowerPoint
doing presentations, and I use PowerPoint a lot at work.
Okay.
And so it's easy for me just to do PowerPoint slides and put together presentations. It really is. And if you're gonna do presentations, you just might as well just do PowerPoint, because then you can just do the slides. And I've done it for years, so it's easy for me to do that.
Yeah, another learning curve for the rest of us, however.
Well, yeah, but but I would encourage everybody on here, especially Kathy Hansen, who takes excellent photography. Okay. And John and the other, and I saw what's his name on here too, that does really nice pictures. He drives around and takes really nice pictures and shows up in critique.
I'm starting to feel insulted, Laura.
And Madeline, of course. Madeline is always at critique. But come to critique.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay.
We really, critique has been, for me as an underwater person, I never used to take, I'm gonna tell you right now, everybody, I never used to take pictures outside of underwater. Really, because I didn't know, I did when I was a kid, and then I started coming to critique, and I started thinking, I need to shoot topside too. I need to, because I think when you shoot topside and you shoot good topside, you take those skills underwater, because you start thinking about light and composition, because those things are transferable. And I think it just makes you more universal, because it's something that crosses boundaries. And so critique is great for that, because you go and you see what other people are doing, and it really stimulates your noggin to, okay, I'm going to try that. And we actually have a game in critique where I will actually bring my topside stuff, and people will be like, oh, who shot that? Because if I bring something underwater, everybody knows who it is, because it's me, right? But I have a game where I challenge myself to shoot underwater, to shoot topside, And people will be like, oh, well, who took that picture? And I just sit there and don't say anything.
And Laura also knows the geography of everywhere. It's like, where was that taken? Oh, it must have been at in critique.
Well, you know.
I love critique. I agree with Laura. I think critique, without critique, I'm not sure how long I would have stayed in this group. I think critique is incredibly valuable.
And see, I see Kathy because Kathy pulls off these landscape shots. And I'm like, oh, you know, because I would really like to do better landscape, you know? And so it would be great, you know, if somebody like you would come and go, okay, this is how I did this, and this is how I staged this, and this is my lighting, you know? And so I always learn from the different perspectives of people who come. And I think with Zoom, it's actually easy because you can hang out in your basement and drink a beer and put on your pajamas and come to critique. And at least that's what I do, but anyway.
Well, this characterization of topside makes me think of you kind of like Aquaman. But I told Sean recently or tonight that, yeah, I saw your underwater photos 2 or 3, 4 years ago. And what you're doing now, I think, is National Geographic quality. The improvement has just been amazing.
It is, Laura.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think it's thank you. I really appreciate that. And I will tell you that if you see something you like on Instagram or something else, y'all just get in touch with me and I'll give you a little deal on something, because you know, I feel like I would rather have like people have something that they like in their house that, you know, I'll just give you like cost or whatever. And then you have something that you can enjoy, you know, and that, cause that's more important to me, because I think I'm more into like getting people into the thought that, hey, kelp is disappearing. Okay. Rockfish are crashing. We need to think about these things. And I think having like a small picture of something cool so you can think about that is more important to me. You know, I don't have to live off my photo work per se. So if you guys see something you like, just let me know and I'll get you a little deal going.
I definitely have a couple in mind.
All right, just contact me, man. We'll work on it.
Be in touch.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's one of the differences, Laura, even in the few years that I've known you, is that you've taken this, you're taking it more seriously yourself as a, you know, as doing this.
Yeah. And the other thing that really, I mean, if I can just take one more minute, is this Monterey trip. I was invited along on this trip with this person who shoots, who's probably one of the top 10, I would say, in the United States, probably in our part of the world. And having this person is kind of my mentor. And having this person to myself all week long, priceless.
Yeah, that's
You know?
incredible.
And I mean, I'm pretty hardcore too. You know, like we dove off a 14-foot Zodiac all week long. In the open ocean, we were like 3 miles off Monterey coast. I'm pretty fearless. I'm pretty hardcore. Like one day my dry suit and fighter hose didn't work and I dove anyway and got squeezed the whole time. But you know, I'm like, hey, I'm here to dive, okay? And I mean, having somebody like that critique your work and give you tips and take you under their wing and be like, okay, this is what you really need to think about, or you need to get this kind of equipment, or you need to kind of really, you know, start thinking about framing things and, you know, looking at things like this way. Somebody who has 35 years of experience in the trade, that's just like, wow, you know, that was so good for me. I mean, I'm so grateful for this guy for taking me under his wing, because in this business, a lot of people are like, you know, I'm not going to tell you about what I do. You know, I'm not going to share my stuff with you. I'm not going to share tips. I'm not going to help you because it's very cutthroat, you know. And this is a person who's on the cover of Scuba Diving. This is a person who writes for a lot of these magazines. This is a person who's really known in the trade. So having this person recommend me and help me and introduce me to people has really been instrumental. You know, I'm so lucky to have that. And I can't thank him enough for that. And plus, he's just a nice guy. He's a great guy.
Well, the photo that you had, or maybe multiple photos, with the two strobes with the cone, that was incredible technical application. I thought it's something that probably most of us would never think about.
Yeah.
And it made a beautiful photo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people will go, well, the other thing, I mean, just to kind of share one other thing is that it's very frustrating to me. It's hard being a woman in this because I won a pretty prestigious contest lately, and my photo, it was a shark, and it was a photo that was posted. It was an international contest, and people were posting on this photo. Oh, I bet he's a really good photographer. You know, and I'm like, do I look like a man? I mean, does my name even sound remotely, you know, masculine? I mean, I just kind of think people just assume automatically that
Laura,
you're a man.
Laura,
Yeah.
as an artist who had the same problem with signing my lithographs and my artwork, my brother owned a restaurant, and my work was hanging in his restaurant. And he said he started noticing exactly what you're saying. People began analyzing the picture by the fact that a female had signed it. And so he suggested I drop my first name and I just write my last name as a signature. And it was amazing. People began analyzing the work by itself and for itself, and never once questioned who the artist was. And that's a shame, because I feel like you do. You know, I worked hard to get where I was, and then to be analyzed because I was female. And in those days, I'm going back like 45 years, 50 years. In those days, art was a man's world. There were very few women that were in it. And so automatically I became an object of, that's a weird one. And so try dropping your first name on some of your work and see what happens. It's worth it.
With a try. But yeah, I just, it's frustrating sometimes because you kind of feel like, and I had one person, you know, kind of say, oh, well, it's, you know, kind of too bad that you're not a man. And I thought, well, why is it too bad I'm not a man?
Right.
I mean, what's the difference? I mean, and most people that are underwater photographers are men. And
Right.
that's okay. Not wrong with that. But I think, you know, it's getting better. I mean, I'm seeing more women underwater photographers, but I still kind of feel like, you know, I mean, I don't know. I think you just have to just keep shooting and keep doing excellent work and just kind of gently keep correcting people that, you know, I'm not a man.
I think the world of photography in general, 5 years ago, there were very few women as opposed to how many men were in the average photography club. And even our club, I've been in, I think, 3 years. And when I joined, it was really heavy on the men. And now I'm noticing there's a lot of women in the club. And I think that's great because our work is what we're there for, not because of who we are. And I'm a big proponent of it.
And not that I don't appreciate the men in this club, okay? Because
I know, I agree.
you know, I mean,
I agree.
it's not about that.
Right.
But it is about, I mean, especially, and I will tell you, especially in the dive world, and it can be, you know, getting sponsorships and things like that. It was frustrating, you know, it can be frustrating. But I also think to myself, you know what? I have a full-time job. I have a full-time job, I have retirement, I have benefits. I don't have to live off my work, thankfully. You know, these people don't. They have to scramble. I mean, they have to work. They have to live off their work. Now, when I retire, I'm going to be a shark because I'm going to be working it hard, and I'm going to be repping, and I'm going to be, you know, approaching people, brands, and I'm going to be like, hey, Nikon, you want somebody to go to every dive club meeting in this region and talk about a D500 and why people should be shooting it? You know, I mean, but I can't do that now. But I will, you know, that's the kind of thing you can do when you retire, you know. So anyway, that's enough about that, you guys.
I actually had a couple of questions. You had mentioned earlier you were trying the rear curtain flash.
Yes.
I had played around with one of my off-camera flashes one time and finally discovered what the multi-flash was all about. Have you tried that, and or would it be too much for the fish? Because I thought it was quite interesting, the results that I got.
I have not tried that. And I read a magazine article where they were using the mirror curtain with fast moving fish. And that's why I was trying that. So I think that would be an interesting technique to try. I read an article. This is something that I read about, and I instantly went out and tried it. And I then instantly went out and bought one. Fish can't see red light. I should have known that as a fish biologist, but fish cannot see red light. And so I went out and got a red focus light and another red light. And so I went out and I noticed that fish would get real agitated with a bright light. And so I just went out and got this red underwater focus light. And as soon as you like get into fish and they start getting all kind of shy and getting under rocks and hunkering down, I just immediately reach up and switch my light to red. Instantly, everything changes.
Huh.
The fish come out. The fish get more relaxed. Everybody chills out. You know, I mean, instantly, you just, you know, because they can't see that frequency. And I'm not sure if octopus can see red, but I've had some interesting octopus encounter with the red light. Like they don't really, the white light, they're kind of, some octopus don't care. I mean, some octopus are like, hey, octopus are octopus. I mean, octopus are smart. If they want to come out and hang out with you and fill you up, they're going to come out and fill you up because that's just how they are. Some octopus will just take off because they got other things to do and they don't want to hang out with you. But some octopus are like, they want to be your friend. They want to get all over you. They want to get in your hair. I mean, you know, I've had octopus do all kinds of weird things. I don't like them getting real in my business because they're kind of strong. Okay. You know, they can rip your regulator out of your mouth. That would ruin your day.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, you know, I don't like them on my face and stuff. So, you know, I have noticed like with the red light, sometimes they just calm down. You know, they're just a lot more relaxed. But with the red light, you got to shoot above 160 because if you shoot below, you'll get a red picture. You know, and I've had some kind of bummer picture taking things with the red light because you're like, oh crap, I forgot, you know, and then you get back and you're like, all your really cool pictures look like you were inside your photo booth with the red light on, you know? Like you idiot, you know. And so I mean, people are like, what the hell do you have, an infrared camera on underwater? I mean, you know, so you have to kind of think about that. But you know, I think it's just being kind. You know, like thinking about it, like what if you were hanging out and somebody came and shone this big bright light right in your face, you know? I mean, of course you'd be like, you know, so I think just with a red light, it's just whoosh, so much better, you know, and your camera can focus on it. You just have to remember to shoot high so the red light doesn't come out of the picture. So just stuff like that, just being kind. And I don't poke things. I hate people who poke things. I hate people who chase things around. I hate people who manipulate their subjects, like pick stuff up and move it around. You know, I don't like that. So, you know, I just try to be kind. I try to take no more than 5 pictures of something. I don't blind my subjects with 800 pictures. Stuff like that.
Okay, so then blinding your subjects with 800 pictures of multi-flash probably wouldn't be your thing then, because that could be
No.
like 10 flashes in one exposure. So
Yeah, I would probably not. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be too keen on that, probably. Yeah.
okay. The other thing I was wondering about Fukushima, did that change your diving?
Did it change my diving?
Yeah, when things started working its way over here.
Yeah, my buddy list is about this long now. You know, I used to know a lot of people that would like to go diving, and now I know, like, you know, every 25th dive, I don't dive with the camera. Camera stays on land, or the camera stays on the boat. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want to forget why I started to dive. I started to dive because I love to dive, because I love to look at stuff, man. And I like to just dive to look at fish and be a guest in the underwater world, because that's what you are. I mean, you leave this world and you go into the underwater world. You open up the door and you go into the underwater world, and you're a guest in that world for a limited amount of time. And it's really cool. You're totally weightless. It's like being in space. No wonder, that's why astronauts train in a pool. And that's why I don't bring a camera, because I think you need to not be looking at a camera every single dive that you go on. I think you need to be looking at everything, and you need to be going, yeah, this is the ecosystem, and I'm part of it, and I'm underwater, and I'm, you know, looking at all the fish, and I'm listening. You can hear fish eat underwater. Like when you're on a coral reef, you can hear them eating. You know, there's so many of them, and they're grinding and they're eating. And sometimes you can hear fish, like they squeeze their swim bladders and they make these sounds, these squeaking sounds. You know, you can hear, I've heard whales underwater. I've heard dolphins underwater. You know, you need to be cognizant of those things. You need to be looking around. You need to be watching the eelgrass, you know, swaying in the waves. And, you know, I mean, that's important. If you forget that stuff, then I think you don't take as good pictures, because you have to put all the pieces together with your pictures with people that don't dive, because that's your responsibility, is to bring people into that world through your pictures. And so, you know, you have to be a part of it.
Same thing can be said for on top. A
Yeah.
lot of times I'll go out in nature and I'll leave my camera home,
Yeah,
because I can get so focused on
Totally.
taking pictures
totally,
that I don't really take in the scene.
totally.
There's a saying that the Victorians used to go on picnics with empty picture frames. So they
Yeah.
pull the picture frame up and appreciate the landscape. But you
Totally.
needed the picture frame in order to appreciate the landscape. And sometimes, similar to Max, I don't want to look at the world through this little lens eyepiece or vision. I just want to be out there. So I may take a walk with no camera or with a little point and shoot that's in my pocket, and shoot, not shoot, doesn't matter. I just want to live. I just want to experience.
Right.
And I don't want to filter all my experiences through a camera.
Right.
So I
Totally.
go out with the camera sometimes, and I just go out sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah, so
Totally.
that's what you're saying about the diving. So I totally appreciate that.
Totally. And I also need, that's why I'm saying this critique and learning how to take better pictures topside is important too, because when you tell the story, it's more than just the underwater pictures. I think it's important Like when I went to Indonesia, I thought it was important to go to the street market and shoot the pictures of the people, like do the street photos. And we went to the bush meat market, and although it was kind of gross too because the rats and all that stuff, but I mean, you know, to them it's protein, right? It's protein, and it's what people eat. And so it was fascinating to just go in this market and take all these pictures of like these weird things and all these people, and you know, and so I think you have to tell the whole story, because the undersea part is only part of the story. You know, you have to tell the rest of the story, like this is what I saw topside, and here's how people live, and you know, here's the little kids playing in the street, and you know, this kind of thing. So I think it's really important to be able to tell the whole story, you know.
I'm just going to jump in to say goodnight to everyone. I've got to go. Thank you, Laura. And
Nighty night.
you could critique.
Thank you, Laura. You were great.
Okay. And I can shut up too. I didn't mean to take all your time.
Oh, no, I love to listen to you, Laura. It's, I feel that you are like a blessing to our group.
Ah,
Because I'm never going to get to go underwater. And the world is part, you know, it's mostly water that I'm never going to see. So I can see it through your eyes.
ah.
That is, to me, amazing stuff. And I love to listen to every word you say about whatever is down there. So,
Well, thanks. And you know, I try to just drop a few pictures now and then on the group site, because I figure people, you know, people are interested, want to kind of check it out once in a while. But you know, if you want to, like I said, if you want to see, I try to post like 3 or 4 times a week, just about what I see and little background info and that kind of stuff. And that's been pretty popular on Instagram. So just something to do.
Laura, how often do you dive?
Oh boy. How often would I like to dive, or how often do I dive? I try to dive. COVID's kind of been messing with me, but we're getting into, this is what I call my prime dive time. So I like to dive the most in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. So I try to dive at least once a month. And so I usually go to Washington to dive. And then I like to go to British Columbia. You know, we used to go to Canada at least 4 times a year. So that's a bigger trip, because we got to drive all the way across the border, take the ferry, blah, blah, blah. So at least once a month, all weekend. Get up there, you know, I work Friday. I usually take half a day off on Friday, pile all the crap in the rig, drive north, and start diving, you know. I was diving up to Keystone Jetty, which is a Whidbey Island, or we go to Anacortes. So that's a 6-hour one-way trip. So just pedal to the metal up there on Friday, get staged, and then that's current sensitive. So you're dropping in the current and then driving to the next place and diving that. Or I'll dive Hood Canal. Hood Canal's good in the winter. Couple other places like dive around Seattle. This Oregon opportunity is interesting. I'd like to dive Oregon more. You know, it's just, we got to find boats. You know, we got to find people to take us out. Now the weather window's kind of shutting for Oregon, though, is the problem there. My in-laws live in Florida, so when we go visit them, they're on the wrong side of Florida. They're on the Naples side. Barbara's gonna laugh when I say that. I usually just get on the Alligator Alley and drive over the other side. Dive over there on the Atlantic side, or go down to the Keys, get some diving in over there. Or California, drive down California, dive in California. So just wherever. Or you know, and now I don't really dive in the wintertime. In the spring, I don't dive the rivers because they get too high. You know, so I leave the rivers and stuff for, like, you know, August, when it's low enough where you're not like, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
What depth do you usually go?
What did you say?
What depth?
What
Do you-
depth? Depends. Depends on what I want to see. If I want to see cloud sponges, I'll go down to 100 feet. If usually macro right around 60 to 80 is really where most of the action's at. So right around there. I mean, sometimes there's stuff to see 30 feet. You know, like there's a place in Nia Bay called C2 Jetty. I'd love to dive up there. And that place, you got to dig a hole to get to 35 feet. And that place is a great place to dive because there's a big thing of eelgrass up there. And that's a nice place to dive. Lots of gorgeous things to see there. That's a great shore dive.
Laura, are there different bands of fish at different depths that you?
Definitely. Like some rockfish live deeper, some rockfish live shallower. In general, your operating depth, between 60 and 80 is usually where most of your party action is.
This would be a little bit different, but I don't know if they'll be doing it this year, but for the last several years, Rotary Club and Salem have been doing the triathlon. Sorry, the kids are making noise. They've been doing the triathlon, and part of that has been swimming the Willamette River. Part of it. Have you maybe thought about shooting any of that? I've shot it, like I said, David Barker, he used to be a club member. He's the one who is in charge of the photography portion of it. Have you talked to him at all about maybe shooting that?
That is a type of shot called a split shot, and I want to get better at doing split shots before I would volunteer to help with doing that. Split shots are tricky. I just bought a better dome for that. I was actually shooting it down in Port Orford so I could practice some more with it. It's an 8-inch glass dome. So I want to get better at split shots before I do that. I would love to help them with that, but right now I'm practicing that technique. And a split shot, for those that don't know, is basically you're shooting half underwater and half not. So your camera, what I did is I bought a kickboard, those things you use in the pool, when you're swimming lanes or whatever. So I set my camera on top of this kickboard and then basically aim the front of it. So I'm getting focus on the bottom and then setting your exposure for the top and then sort of jiggling around. So you basically get a good shot, top and bottom. So it's a split. You have to have, obviously you can't have really wavy water. You can't have droplets on the dome. So people rub a potato on their dome so the water sheets off. People use Rain-X, people spit on their dome. I know that's gross, but spit is the best. You have to have pretty level water, so let me play around with getting better at that because I just got this dome. So I've been kind of practicing with it. I was trying to practice with it down south and it was so rough. And we had 6 to 8 foot surge down at Port Orford. And I was like, I'm going to practice my split shots against this rock. And I got in the water and I'm like, I'm going to practice not getting my face bashed against this rock instead. So, yeah.
I've actually shot that event the last couple of years. And last year, well, not last year, I think I had to skip last year, the year before, I was on a boat with a few of the local police officers who they pretty much put me in charge. They said, tell us where you want to go, which was interesting, but it's a very difficult event to shoot. I did better standing on shore shooting people coming out of the water.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun to get people swimming.
Yeah, I got a few of those shots, but I didn't like them.
So I'm thinking
maybe the swimmers thought they were better than I did. I don't know.
Yeah, I've done it, and I just shot the bicyclers, and that was easy in comparison, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it would be better to maybe be standing as they were coming out with the housing, or, you know, because I definitely would not want to be in the water without a housing, you know, and maybe be, you know, standing or at the level where they were coming out on the side. And then I don't know, I'd have to think about it. I'd have to like go down and think about where the staging area is and stuff.
Yeah, David gave me the idea that being on the boat out in the water would be great, and I thought it would be too, but it did not turn out to be a fact. I didn't like it.
Well, he asked me if I wanted to be on the boat. I'm like, I have a seizure disorder. No, I don't want to be on the boat.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's difficult when you're on the boat. You get some good shots because you get swimmers at certain angles, but you miss a lot of stuff. I didn't like it. You're very restricted.
I have to leave, but Laura, I want to tell you thank you. It was most enjoyable. I really enjoyed it.
I might do it like if I was in a wet, you'd have to shoot pretty fast shutter too. So I don't know. I mean, this would be a logistical, this would be an interesting challenge actually.
Have a good night, Barbara.
Thank you, Laura. I have to go. It was really interesting and
Good to
really
see you.
beautiful. Keep up the good work.
And you take good pictures too.
Bye, Carol.
Yeah, if we had had a swimmer with a GoPro on their head, that would have been great.
I have a GoPro. Maybe that's what I should do next time.
Well, you need to enter that event, and it's only a few kilometers. It's not a big
No,
deal.
I wouldn't. No, I would not be. No, I would not be entering.
Okay. I'm watching these people that are like 100 years older than I am running these things.
Yeah.
And
no.
I'm looking at them going, yeah, there's no way I could do this.
Yeah, that would not be me. No, that would not be me. So, yeah, if anybody has any other questions or needs stuff, let me know. I mean, you know where to find me.
I'm going to be in touch for a print.
Yeah, totally.
Thank
Let
you,
me
Laura.
know.
Thank
I do
you so
wish
much,
we could do
Laura.
some in-person shoots because this is what I really want to do. Okay, this is my wish list in front of everybody. I really, really want to learn how to shoot that darn camera on an astral shoot because me and Jesse went up there and we had perfect seating for that comet. I mean, you could not have had a better comet show than we did at Waldo. And of course, every single one of my pictures is a blurry mess because I don't know how to do the stupid exposure thing.
Well, you just come to the Nikon talk and we'll go through that.
I am gonna come to the Nikon talk. So that is my secret wish. I really want to learn how to talk and do that better because I really like doing that, but I can't figure out how to figure out my stupid manual focus. And
Matt is your guy for astral shoot.
Okay, right on. That's my one thing I really.
What is that, Matt?
Wouldn't it be fun to go to the east side, like to Kimberly or Spray?
This is called a Betnov mask.
There.
See, Matt's got it.
That's my other wish. And then I really wish I could learn how to do better landscape pictures. That's my other secret wish.
And we have a few of us that can teach you that.
And waterfall
Look at
pictures.
this.
But that's where I'm at. That's my 3 areas that I think I really stink.
All right. You need Matt. You need Bill Leach. What was the other area?
Astral, waterfalls, and landscapes.
Oh, waterfalls. Okay.
Yeah.
John,
We
I
got
just
several
typed
of
it
us
into
that
the
can
chat.
help you with waterfalls.
Okay. So I'm coming. I'll be at the Nikon meetup. So I'll be there because I got a D500. So I'll be there.
There you go. You'll get some good information at the Nikon meetup.
Yay. Yay.
Well, you got Max, who's an expert at landscape. You got Matt, who's an expert at astrophotography. So you're
Don't
good
call
to
me an
go.
expert.
All right. I'm in the pipe then.
There you go.
Yep, sounds good. And if anybody has a Tokina 35 macro in their bag that you want to sell, I want to buy it. But it has to be a macro, okay? Not just a 35, it has to be a macro.
Have you checked focal point?
I already talked to those guys. This is not a lens. Toke doesn't make this lens anymore.
Okay.
So this is kind of like something you like a weird lens you would have rattling around in your closet or bag. So like I looked on eBay and they're around $250. So just if you got it and you want to sell it, I want to buy it from you.
You work for the state. You can afford it.
Yeah, well, that's what you think. Don't let my husband hear you say that.
I love you, Laura. Okay, is anybody else got anything? If
I
not,
think I'm ready to go.
we're way past time, but this has been fun. I've
Yeah.
loved it. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Has this been recorded?
Yes.
it
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
All right, you guys. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See y'all.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.
Yep.
All right.